It began as a whisper, an image that was never meant to be seen, an anomaly buried deep in the raw data of the James Webb Space Telescope. At first, only a handful of astronomers noticed the glitch in the spectrographic data, a pattern too precise, too rhythmic, too artificial. It wasn't a cosmic dust flare, it wasn't a dying star, and it definitely wasn't a comet. It was something else, something cold, calculated, and terrifying. The object in question, 3IATLAS, an interstellar visitor already known for defying the rules of physics. But this new leak captured during a classified James Webb observation would change everything we thought we knew. If what the data suggests is true, then 3IATLAS isn't just another mysterious traveler from deep space. It may be watching us. And now, for the first time, the truth is leaking out. When 3IATLAS was first spotted, astronomers assumed it was another interstellar comet. After all, we had seen this before with Oumuamua and Borisov. Strange object from other star systems swinging past our sun and vanishing into the void. But 3IATLAS immediately set itself apart. It wasn't just its trajectory or its velocity that raised eyebrows. It was how it behaved. Unlike typical comets, which develop a visible coma of water vapor and dust when they approach the sun, 3IATLAS stubbornly refused to follow the script. No coma, no tail, no water. Instead, it emitted only carbon dioxide and in large quantities while remaining eerily silent in all other spectrographic readings. NASA pointed the powerful infrared spectrometer aboard the Sphere-X observatory at the object, expecting to find confirmation of water or carbon monoxide, two gases almost always present in comets. But the result? Nothing. Just carbon dioxide. No water, no carbon monoxide. A chemical profile never before recorded in the history of space observation. What kind of object emits CO2 exclusively? The answer was unsettling. None that we know of. Not even the strangest comets in our solar system matched this behavior. And if it wasn't acting like a comet, and it wasn't an asteroid, then what was it? As public interest grew, NASA remained unusually silent. But behind closed doors, a more powerful telescope had already been pointed at 3IATLAS. The James Webb Space Telescope, known for its unprecedented resolution and spectrographic detail, was secretly tasked with observing the object on August 6, 2025. No images were released. No press conference followed, just silence. But now, a leaked report from an internal NASA analyst reveals what Webb might have captured. An object with no natural coma, but surrounded by a perfectly symmetrical CO2 halo extending hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space. Even stranger, the infrared signature revealed an unusual brightness originating not from sunlight reflection, but from within the object itself. Was 3IATLAS emitting artificial light? According to the leaked spectrographic breakdown, the emissions bore similarities to engineered photonic systems, meaning light patterns used in telecommunications or data transmission. The wavelengths weren't random. They were repeating, structured like a cosmic Morse code. And if that weren't enough, the object was also measured to be 46 kilometers in diameter, far larger than any other known interstellar object, and too large statistically to simply appear randomly. For a rock of that size to enter our solar system from interstellar space would mean one of two things. Either our understanding of the universe is wildly flawed, or this object was sent here on purpose. Perhaps the most terrifying revelation wasn't about the object's size, or its chemistry, or its emissions. It was the path it took. 3IATLAS didn't enter the solar system on some chaotic slingshot course like Oumuamua. It came in perfect alignment with the orbital plane of the planets. A trajectory with only a 1 in 500 chance of occurring naturally. In other words, it flew in like a drone following a flight plan. It passed near multiple planets, including Earth, before heading deeper into the solar system. Avi Loeb, the controversial Harvard astrophysicist who made headlines with his theories about Oumuamua, called the trajectory technologically suggestive. He noted that the object's approach angle was not only precise, but designed to optimize observations from Earth-based and orbital telescopes, almost as if it wanted to be seen, but not fully understood. And remember, this object's origin point traces back to the Sagittarius constellation, the same region of space where the infamous WOW signal was detected in 1977. That signal to this day remains one of the most credible pieces of evidence for an artificial transmission from deep space. Now, ask yourself, what are the odds that the most enigmatic object ever observed in our solar system comes from the exact same region? As speculation mounted, a new theory began to emerge, one not grounded in science fiction, but in engineering feasibility. What if 3IATLAS wasn't a comet or asteroid at all, but a technologically augmented object? Imagine this: a massive asteroid from a distant star system, hollowed out and retrofitted with internal machinery, sensors, or even an artificial habitat encased in dense rock to protect against cosmic radiation with a thin outer layer designed to sublimate CO2 to mask its internal structure. It would appear natural to distant observers unless someone looked closer. This concept isn't new. In fact, it's been proposed by scientists here on Earth as a method for interstellar travel. Asteroid ships that use existing rocky bodies as natural shielding for long-duration space missions. Such an object could travel for thousands of years across space, powered by dormant engines or advanced propulsion systems hidden beneath a kilometer-thick crust. The Sphere-X images combined with the spectrographic leak from Webb suggest that this might not be theory anymore. We might be looking at one right now. And if it is an artificial object, then the implications are staggering. Someone or something sent it. While most public data releases from James Webb focus on exoplanets, distant galaxies, and cosmic background radiation, the encrypted internal logs leaked by anonymous sources inside NASA reveal something unexpected in the light curves emitted from 3IATLAS. According to this report, what was initially interpreted as random thermal emission began displaying an unmistakable modulation pattern. At first glance, it looked like flickering, an optical illusion perhaps caused by the object's rotation. But upon deeper spectral decomposition, the pulses matched prime number sequences, the kind often proposed by SETI scientists as a universal mathematical language for contact. These weren't natural. They weren't coincidental. They were repeating at precise intervals, mimicking beacon-like transmissions across multiple infrared bands. What truly sent chills down the spines of analysts, however, was the discovery of a silent gap between these bursts of light. A long pause, almost as if something was listening, waiting for a reply. It was no longer just a matter of observing 3IATLAS. It was as though this object was actively observing us back. NASA's response: immediate lockdown of all observational data. Observatories were told to cease attempts to track or publicly publish new findings. The story was dead to the media. But for those who had seen the light signature, there was no turning back. Following the leak of the internal Webb data, an unusual uptick in satellite redirection requests was reported across both NASA and ESA channels. But these weren't standard reorientations for routine calibration. They were reassignments directed from military defense agencies, specifically NORAD and the U.S. Space Force. Within 48 hours of the observation leak, the X-37B, a classified military spaceplane, was launched into low Earth orbit on an unannounced mission. Its payload remains a mystery, but orbital path reconstructions suggest a highly elliptical trajectory with line-of-sight potential toward 3IATLAS's projected path. Why would the U.S. military deploy its most secretive space platform in response to an anomalous asteroid? What were they preparing to do? Observe it or intercept it? Behind closed doors, defense briefings began classifying 3IATLAS under a new threat category: technological unknowns of extraterrestrial origin, Tuesday EOS. These internal memos were never meant to be public, but once exposed, they confirmed what many had suspected. This object wasn't just being treated as a scientific anomaly. It was now considered a strategic concern, a concern that might warrant a response. As scientists dug deeper into the possibility of artificiality, a small but daring group of astrobiologists proposed an even more unsettling theory. What if 3IATLAS wasn't just a technological probe, but something alive? Not in the sense of traditional biology, but as a hybrid system, part machine, part biological organism capable of evolution and decision on interstellar timescales. This concept, known as biomechanical synthesis, has been discussed in fringe research circles for decades. Organisms that use metal frameworks, radiation-absorbing skins, and AI neural networks to survive in the vacuum of space. Evolution, not by biology alone, but by intelligence. And if this is what 3IATLAS is, then it wasn't just sent. It may have sent itself. It may be autonomous, capable of adapting its behavior based on environmental feedback, capable of choosing targets or destinations or planetary systems to observe, systems like ours. The implications terrifying. We're no longer looking at a rock or a probe or even a ship. We're looking at something that could learn from us, evolve from us, or worse, assimilate what it observes. In recent months, theorists and astrophysicists have begun to notice another troubling pattern. Timing. The emission pulses, trajectory angles, and orbital alignments of 3IATLAS all point to a chilling possibility. Its presence here may be on schedule. According to a new model developed by independent astronomers, the object's path will bring it into proximity with the asteroid belt in just under 9 months. At that point, it is expected to alter trajectory in a maneuver that would require either immense gravitational interaction or propulsion. Some now speculate that 3IATLAS may be entering a final observational phase, a countdown to something horrendous, a signal dispatch, a transformation. The structure of its repeating signals has even begun to change, suggesting phases. Some believe we are now in phase 3 of a 5-phase sequence, with the final phase coinciding with its alignment between Mars and Earth. What happens then? We don't know. But NASA's sudden silence, the military's rapid response, and James Webb's disappearing images all seem to suggest one thing. They know something is coming. Shortly after James Webb locked onto 3IATLAS for extended observation, something peculiar began to happen. Instruments across the deep space network started failing. At first, it was brushed off as solar interference. But what followed was unprecedented. Entire data streams, from long-D distantiance probes like New Horizons and even legacy systems like Voyager 2, went silent in sync. Radio astronomers noted localized electromagnetic disturbances centered around the Webb observation windows. It was as though something or someone was reacting to the telescope's focus gaze. Engineers called it a coincidence. Analysts called it a cascade failure. But those watching closely began to ask a more chilling question. Was 3IATLAS aware it was being watched? And if it was, what did this electromagnetic suppression mean? Was it a form of defense, a method of cloaking itself, or a warning? Because if it had the ability to interrupt communications from the outer solar system, then it might also have the capability to control what we can or cannot see. Traditional celestial bodies follow predictable paths, elliptical orbits, gravitational assists, or decaying spirals. But 3IATLAS broke the model. According to leaked tracking data, its trajectory defied expectations with sudden, non-ballistic deviations. This wasn't the slow drift of a comet. These were course corrections. Scientists at Caltech simulated various gravitational models to explain the changes, but none matched the precision of the object's real path. Instead, the shifts appeared to be executed with intention, like maneuvers. The final nail in the coffin. On July 4th, a sharp angular deviation aligned it with a specific star system, Lytton star, a red dwarf known to host at least one potentially habitable exoplanet. Coincidence? Not likely. If this object came from Lytton system, if it knew where it was going, if it planned this route decades in advance, then this wasn't the first time 3IATLAS passed through the solar system, and it won't be the last. After decoding the signal patterns emitted by 3IATLAS, a group of fringe biophysicists made a discovery that was immediately buried by the mainstream scientific community. The frequency ratios within the signal reflected fragments of DNA encoding. But not just any DNA, human-compatible structures. The same helix-turn-helix motifs found in gene regulation systems. In other words, biological logic gates. Could this be coincidence, mathematical pareidolia? Or could it mean that the signal from 3IATLAS wasn't just a message to us, but a message about us? What if this object knew about life on Earth because it's seen it before, or worse, because it helped spark it? The idea sent shock waves through the astrobiological community. But before a formal paper could be published, every lab involved received a cease and desist from federal agencies. The official reason: national security concern involving foreign satellite spoofing. But behind the curtain, everyone knew this wasn't foreign. This was Interstellar. In the final leaked memo tied to the James Webb observation logs, a chilling line was repeated multiple times across encrypted transmissions. Countdown initialized. 283 Earth days remaining. But here's the terrifying part. This wasn't a NASA-generated statement. It was decoded from the waveform structure embedded in the IR pulses emitted by 3IATLAS. In other words, the countdown didn't come from us. It came from them. Researchers scrambled to find what event the countdown might correlate with. Solar maximum, Earth's orbital alignment with 3IATLAS, the object's closest pass to Mars. But none of these dates made perfect sense until someone overlaid it with historical data from two previous anomalous objects, Oumuamua and Boris. The pattern was undeniable. Every 7 years, a new object appears, each with increasingly complex emissions, each closer in trajectory to Earth. Some now believe 3IATLAS is Phase 3 in a longer interstellar observation sequence. And this countdown is not about an event on Earth. It's about something arriving here. Among the most controversial elements of the James Webb's leaked image of 3IATLAS wasn't the object itself, but what was trailing behind it. Analysts initially believed it was debris, perhaps ice particles or dust. But further enhancement revealed something far more disturbing. A perfectly linear shadow casting across the infrared field in a way no natural object should. This shadow, strangely unaffected by solar light angles or background radiation, maintained its form regardless of perspective or position. It appeared to follow the object not from sunlight, but from some internal source, as if the shadow itself was being projected outward. Experts from the European Southern Observatory suggested it may be a gravitational lensing artifact, but whistleblowers from inside the Webb team leaked internal documentation where the object was classified as a self-shading body. The term has never appeared in scientific literature before, but one thing was clear. If 3IATLAS is capable of generating its own shadow independent of starlight, it is manipulating space around it in a way we don't yet understand. Weeks after 3IATLAS crossed behind the sun and out of visual range, Webb scientists were confident it had disappeared. But then, deep within the residual data buried in noise, astronomers detected a recurring signal at a frequency nearly identical to the hydrogen line, the universal language of physics. The signal repeated every 12 hours and 3 minutes. Too consistent to be natural and eerily close to the rotation of Earth's magnetic field. After weeks of cross-referencing with past data, the most chilling revelation surfaced. This exact pattern was detected by Voyager 1 back in 1996 during its journey through the helipause. At the time, it was dismissed as static, but now reanalyzed under new frameworks. It aligns perfectly with the current emissions from 3IATLAS, and the signal is growing stronger, almost like it's responding to us, or worse, it's homing in. A final data dump from Webb contained the infrared spectrogram of 3IATLAS's core emissions. At first, the image looked chaotic. Randomized heat signatures, scattered bursts of high-frequency radiation, and warped pixels. But a software engineer working on the image processing team had an idea. She converted the data into polar coordinates and overlaid star maps from the Gaia mission. The result: a chilling alignment of bursts that traced a detailed star map, but not of our solar neighborhood. These stars were part of the Triangulum galaxy, 2.73 million light-years away. Even more terrifying was that the final alignment connected back to Earth, forming a perfect loop. Not only was 3IATLAS possibly from outside the Milky Way, It was mapping its path here across galaxies. This wasn't a lost fragment drifting through the void. This was a calculated arrival. Despite the overwhelming data, the official narrative remains. It's a comet. It's debris. Nothing to worry about. But deep within NASA, I say, and the Webb Consortium, a silent panic brews. Sources within the SETI Institute have hinted at